Welcome back. You're here with Goldberg. Today I wanted to talk about the manifest cynicism of modern politicians. It's a phenomenon I like to describe as the boomer takes it all. Now, of course, it doesn't just apply to boomers. There are others with the same mentality, and you might have some baby boomers who are in fact vehemently opposed or disgusted by what they see currently going on. And now I'm going to get the typical retort, politicians have always been that way. Like, yeah, but you see, we still have these pretenses. These people parading around talking about, we have to defend the sanctity of our democracy. We have to impeach him. The Constitution's at stake. And then once the veneer falls apart, they're doing the same thing. In fact, it's hard to tell the two parties one from the other because, yeah, they have different talking points, but fundamentally, whenever it comes to the future of the country, they're more or less in line. So let's just break this down for a second. As many of you know, this $1.4 trillion bill passed, and Trump, previously, I'm not going to sign it again. He's going to sign it because it's good for the military. This is the normal Republican line. As long as they get defense spending, regardless where it's going, it might not even be going to troops. It could just be going to a defense contractor, but they don't care as long as it's on paper more defense spending. And the Democrats got, out of the $50 billion of new spending, half of it was for the military, roughly half of it was for more of the welfare domestic agencies. And you say, okay, what's the big deal? They put $1.375 billion for the fence, more barriers, and improving border security, which basically means hand out money, taxpayer dollars, to a contractor who's going to piss it away, and you'll probably not see much progress on this so-called wall. I mean, after all, he did put Jared Kushner in charge. Just saying, you might want to consider things there. But okay, so what? The government spends money. Well, I wanted to point this out because you guys might remember, I think it was 2009, 2010, when they were passing Obamacare. There was a lot of rage, a lot of people talking about this is out of control, this is ridiculous. Now, in fairness to people supporting Obamacare, they did have mechanisms in the bill to pay for it, right? So you had the medical device tax, there was the penalty tax if you didn't have care. You had the Cadillac tax, which of course they kept delaying because it was unpopular. You had also the investment tax and then the health insurance taxes. So all of these things, whilst imperfect, they provided revenue streams to help justify this massive expansion of bureaucracy, federal power, the apparatus. And yet, we have this interesting problem. So beyond all the spending, beyond the fact that they are doing away with the solar tax credit. I don't know why exactly, what the logic was behind that, because I thought we were trying to become more sustainable. But at any rate, part of this massive spendathon, they're repealing the Cadillac tax, the medical device tax, and also the health insurance tax. So essentially, the main thing remaining in Obamacare tax-wise is that investment/rich people tax, which they'll probably postpone or repeal in the future if I had to put my money on it. Now, why is this a big deal? Well, because it's a great example of how our politicians work. They want something, they want to spend the money, but they don't want to actually have to suffer the consequences of it. They don't want the taxes. We have the Republicans who, let's say under Bush, they were talking about we have to go into the Middle East, we have to spend trillions of dollars, but they didn't put in place a war tax so that everyone had to kind of contribute and it could alleviate the cost. No, absolutely not. In fact, they cut taxes twice whilst driving up all the spending. Democrats get in, we're going to change things. They put Obamacare. Oh, but we've got taxes to fund it. No, we're going to actually now go with the Republicans, bipartisan, and we're going to repeal those taxes. So Obamacare remains, right? The Republican efforts to repeal it or really just redirect money from the government to corporations failed, as we saw in 2017. But they didn't really want to get rid of Obamacare. They wanted to get rid of the taxes that impeded their corporate donors. That's why medical device tax. Do you really think the average American cares if you're taxing medical devices? Let's be real for a second, right? Do you really believe that it was absolutely imperative to get rid of this stuff for small business owners and working class people? No, not particularly. I mean, maybe you could argue the Cadillac tax if they were part of some fancy union healthcare program, but otherwise, it was just about essentially paying off more donors. And so you would think at that point people say, okay, we need to now repeal Obamacare. No, Obamacare is going to stay. They're probably not going to touch it ever again. This bill adds like $500 billion to the deficit, and because of the loss of the Obamacare taxes, the projection is in 10 years we lose $373 billion of revenue, whilst this bill at the same time is raising overall spending by $50 billion. That just gives you some perspective, folks. And that's why when I see these people running around being all self-righteous, like progressives, I mean, there's legitimate arguments to be made on the environment, like this idea of we need to become more sustainable. The problem is, do you think those taxes are ever actually going to be collected? Just because you put them in place, they say financial transaction tax. Oh, we need to close these loopholes. We saw how the Republicans closed loopholes last time around. They didn't do anything. So that's why with these massive programs, I'm very, very skeptical, because I'm saying, are we just going to have another thing that spends money, prints and borrows, but never actually collects anything to cover it, or even alleviate it slightly, offset it even in a minor sense? You hear people and it's like on TV, millionaires and billionaires, or on the Fox News channel, that sounds like socialism. At the end of the day, they're in the same camp. Republicans want to spend money and will refuse to cut anything, right? Remember the great Republican majorities, they refuse to even cut things that they don't support, like, publicly funded arts, right? They couldn't even nibble at Trump's budget, but they still want to cut taxes while jacking up defense spending. Democrats say, oh, no, we believe in domestic spending. Spend on the domestic side, we will pass the taxes, but then we'll postpone them, and now we're going to repeal them so no one has to actually pay the taxes for what we're proposing. This is politics in 2019. This is the reason why I think so many people are cynical, and why all these talking points you hear are really just a waste of time. They're in the same camp, and that is print money to pay off their donors, and when they pass on, who cares, because their family, their estate, their position will be enriched. Everyone else can be just stuck with the bill. That is, the boomer takes it all.